各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。飲食失調症咧係一種會令人飲食習慣失常，並且造成嚴重困擾，或者對自己嘅體重同埋身材產生極大嘅憂慮嘅疾病嚟㗎。咁對於健康咧有好多嘅負面影響，有時甚至會危及生命。呢一個疾病啊，可以發生喺任何嘅身形、任何年齡、任何性別、任何族裔背景嘅人士身上。喺2017年嘅時候，我哋曾經採訪過多位飲食失調症患者，了解佢哋同該疾病抗爭嘅經歷，以及對於公立醫療項目嘅訴求。而事隔4年後嘅今日，我哋正係面對住新冠疫情，國民嘅身心健康備受衝擊。究竟疫情對於飲食失調症患者有啲乜嘢影響呢？政府嘅醫療支持係咪有進一步嘅改善呢？2017年，我哋曾經採訪過一位飲食失調症患者 Carol Weiss， 同好多患者唔同嘅係，佢並非喺青少年時期，而係喺47歲嘅時候突然患上飲食失調症。而令佢患上飲食失調症嘅主要原因，就係要從佢嘅人生經歷講起。Carol 先後經歷過3位姐妹嘅死亡，其中一位仲係加拿大累茲公路婦女失蹤案嘅受害人。佢仲有過一段長達15年嘅受虐婚姻，獨力撫養4名子女。
I was so stressed. I was like, I got to go for a walk. And within a month, I was working all day and running 13 kilometers home, and then exercising every night.
除咗過量運動之外 ，Carol 喺飲食方面亦相當節制，但由於身體長時間過度飢餓，冇幾耐之後，佢嘅厭食症就開始伴隨住狂食同埋清空食物嘅行為出現，直至1年之後，體重減輕咗80磅，先至意識到出現問題。於是佢向佢區內 Kamloops 嘅衛生當局部門求助。
I just continued to go downhill, and by spring of 2010, so within 2 years, I had gone from weighing over 200 pounds to weighing 95 pounds.
佢之後被轉介去可以為成年飲食失調症患者提供住院治療嘅聖保祿醫院，但係卻被告知最少要輪候1年先至能夠進入相關嘅治療項目。隨後喺精神科醫生嘅幫助之下，佢前往安省一間精神健康中心接受住院治療，並且成功將體重恢復至健康水平。但係就喺佢返回 Kamloops 準備重返職場嘅時候，一場嚴重車禍再次令佢受到嚴重打擊。幸好喺 Carol 再度嘗試之下，佢終於成功進入聖保祿醫院嘅飲食失調症科接受住院治療。而事隔4年之後，我哋再次同 Carol 取得聯絡，跟進佢嘅情況。
When I finally finished the program early 2018, and had quite a few challenging things that year, but managed to keep in check with the eating, and really did very well with it. I have voluntarily done some of the outpatient groups here in Kamloops.
今年快將60歲嘅 Carol 回憶話，當時喺聖保祿醫院完成住院治療之後，佢嘅健康狀況得到明顯嘅改善。而臨床狀況嘅穩定，亦都令到佢得以進入該院設喺溫哥華東區嘅一間家庭式看護中心繼續接受治療。
Of course, obviously eat all your meals and it's all monitored, and that was the part of it that was the most beneficial, because they have very well trained people. So I got a lot out of this. We had to do some projects. We had to do one on your genealogy, so to look back over your family history and to see whether there was any other eating disorders in the family, were there other addictions, were there, other things that might predispose you. Most impactful one for me was they call it the Onion Project. So it's the reference is you're peeling back the layers of the onion, and it's just basically looking at all the events in your life that and the impact they've had on you and that got you to where you are.
而原本慢慢走上正軌嘅生活，但係喺2019年12月就發生咗改變。
Just before Christmas, I got a really bad case of pneumonia, and I was hospitalized over Christmas, and it reoccurred in January, and then it reoccurred again in February. I'm pretty sure I had COVID at that time, but they weren't testing, you know. And then after that cleared up, I started having a problem with the inside of my mouth. For the last year, the whole inside of my mouth, the lips and my tongue is like raw skin almost. I've been able to eat nothing but liquids and bland foods and soft foods. Unfortunately, of course, then the whole COVID thing on top of that. And so I have actually lost a lot of weight in this last year. And I won't lie, even though the most of it is medically based, but the eating disorder thoughts come back, and the battle, it's like a war in your head, right? It's like everything hurts to eat, so I just won't eat, you know? And so I'm in a real tug of war with food right now.
Carol 話：目前醫生亦都唔知道呢一個自身免疫疾病係咪會痊愈，而對於好似佢咁樣嘅飲食失調症患者嚟講，新冠疫情帶嚟嘅影響無疑係非常之巨大。
I do think certainly the COVID has not helped. It has helped to make it worse than it might have been, because I could be seeing somebody face to face. I live with my elderly mom and look after her, but nobody comes to see my mom because they don't want to bring it here. And so I've been feeling very overwhelmed with the isolation of it. And, you know, the isolation leads to the frustration, and the frustration leads to, and unfortunately, the nature of the beast of the eating disorder often.
At St. Paul's Hospital, we are a tertiary hospital-based program meant to be treating the people who have the most severe forms of eating disorders in the province.
喺2017年嘅採訪之中，聖保祿醫院成人飲食失調症治療項目醫療總監 Julia Ronsus 醫生曾經向我哋詳細解釋過飲食失調症。其實係多種進食障礙嘅統稱，而其主要分為神經性厭食症同埋神經性暴食症兩大類。
Bulimia is a kind of illness where people may eat food to deal with emotional symptoms and then get rid of that food either by vomiting or using laxatives or other things that help them get rid of those calories.
而由於消瘦、營養不良、狂食、催吐等均為飲食失調症嘅常見症狀，令到好多人以為佢係一種生理疾病。但係其實飲食失調症係一種可以導致嚴重後果，甚至危及生命嘅心理健康疾病，需要得到重視同埋嚴肅對待。而該病嘅復發率亦都相當高。甚至令好多患者困擾終生。
I think, as a doctor, I have so many concerns about COVID-19, from, the physical toll to the emotional toll.
事隔4年，我哋再次採訪咗 Ronsus 醫生，佢坦言，新冠疫情的確令到佢嘅一啲患者病情惡化。
People aren't going to see their family doctors. They're not seeing family and friends who might be able to just see physically, oh my goodness, this person has lost a lot of weight, or they, in talking to them, they're not the same. I recognize that they're suffering emotionally. Let me take you for support. Like all of those sort of connections that allow people to voice how they're doing emotionally have changed.
唔單止係咁，受到疫情影響，聖保祿醫院成人飲食失調症治療項目喺去年嘅3月中至到6月一度暫停關閉。重開之後，亦都冇辦法完全恢復以往嘅治療方式，部分已經轉為網上服務。
So there's been some real challenges, and we've had to be really creative. We also noticed that our wait lists went way up during COVID. I mean, in part because the units were closed for a period of time, so the flow stopped. And we tried initially seeing if we should be adjusting the length of stay, but then we realized that we still needed to be giving people a good bolus of treatment. So we've been more aggressively managing our wait lists with enhanced case management. But we've we've seen, and we communicate with all of our community providers, that their wait lists have all gone up substantially, so that people are presenting with more severe disease.
劉少醫生話，導致飲食失調症復發嘅原因之一，就係好似新冠疫情所帶嚟嘅精神壓力。
Other things that happen, within their life in terms of change, relationship stress, job stress, financial pressure. We know that if we look at the prognosis of eating disorders, we know about a third of people fully recover. A third of people go on to have a waxing and waning illness, such that they may be susceptible to this kind of stress to perpetuate a recurrence of their illness. And then a third of people go on to have a severe and persistent illness where they never have significant periods of recovery, that they live with this illness throughout their life.
而同4年前相比，佢坦言喺治療方法上並冇好大差別。不過，佢哋正係實施一個名為持續質素改進計劃嘅項目，為此進行咗大量嘅研究。
We can see that if we look at our program over time, we're showing good outcomes. And so that the treatment that we're applying and figuring out who needs the right treatment when, and that's been one of our big goals, is to apply the right treatment to the right person at the right time. And that's been a real leading philosophy for our program. And that when we do that well, we do show that we get better outcomes.
佢再次強調，飲食失調行為可以幫助患者降低對負面情緒嘅感知度，因此就成為咗佢哋逃避生活壓力以及變故嘅一種方式，而並非係患者個人選擇嘅一種生活方式。
I think one of the most important messages about eating disorders is that it's not, the food is a vehicle for communication. That it is a coping tool that works for some individuals to manage emotional stress. That, it's very rarely about, wanting to look a certain way, or, and maybe it starts out as a diet or a fad, but eventually, food really becomes the tool that works to help manage the emotions.
而 Carol 亦都希望同佢一樣飽受飲食失調症困擾嘅患者，切勿陷入自責同埋羞恥嘅感覺之中。
The longer you try and hide it, the more it eats you up inside, right? And I may never recover, but I don't hide it now. And I struggle with it, but it's not destroying me from the inside.
唔係下節返嚟，我哋會繼續同長期與飲食失調症抗爭嘅患者，了解過去嘅4年嚟佢哋嘅治療經歷，以及喺疫情期間所遭遇嘅挑戰。歡迎返嚟節目時間。飲食失調症患者喺早期咧係會有一啲反常嘅表現㗎。咁有專業人士就呼籲身邊嘅家人同埋朋友咧應該要重視，及早干預並且鼓勵佢哋就醫。咁而即使有患者對於冇辦法揾到適合嘅公立治療項目，咁並且對治療缺乏後續長期支持咧而有所不滿，但係佢哋咧就仍然鼓勵其他患者唔好輕言放棄，咁喺治療嘅過程之中，終有成績同埋收穫㗎。2017年，當時47歲嘅 Catherine Kohler 受飲食失調症困擾已經26年，佢人生嘅大部分時間都用於同呢一個疾病抗爭。
I auditioned for the Boston Ballet, and I was told that if I wanted to, I could come to the summer school, but I needed to lose weight first.
自嗰陣時開始，咁為咗瘦身減肥 ，Catherine 逐漸開始出現飲食失調嘅症狀，並一發不可收拾。
I developed bulimia first, so I was eating a lot of food and then throwing up, and I was not going to class in order to do that. I was spending a lot of time alone. I was lying a lot to my parents about things and trying to make it seemed like everything was okay.
直至佢父母發現事態嚴重，並要求佢坦白講出有冇催吐嘅時候，佢先至迫不得已承認。之後並且開始出現減少進食嘅厭食症狀，期間又伴隨住頻繁嘅狂食同埋催吐，身體情況越嚟越差，學業亦都被迫中斷。自嗰陣時開始 ，Catherine 幾乎試晒所有本國針對飲食失調症嘅公立醫療項目，並且2度申請到醫療撥款前往美國治療，但係病情依然反反覆覆。雖然喺情況轉好嘅時候得以返回校園完成學業，但係喺畢業之後就因為病情原因始終冇辦法工作。
I think being with an eating disorder, you exist, but you don't live.
事隔4年之後，我哋再次接觸 Catherine。
I actually, I fought the government for 8 years to get funding to go out of country for treatment. So, in 2019, I went to a facility in the US for treatment for 6 months. The program was very good. I got up to my goal weight and I was doing really well. It was really good treatment. I learned a lot. Unfortunately, the problem with going away to treatment is you have a lot of treatment and you come home to nothing. So unfortunately, I did end up relapsing.
而新冠疫情嘅爆發更加為佢帶嚟唔少困難。
Normally, I have an individual therapist who I see, but because of COVID, we talk on the phone, which is just not the same. It's not the same level of support. On the other hand, I'm also doing a bit of treatment with the Vancouver Coastal Eating Disorder Program, which is an outpatient program, and we're doing things by Zoom. And actually, that's quite good because normally it would take me an hour and a half to get there. So that's really good. But I am struggling, and normally at this point, I might go into hospital to get some maintenance treatment. Also, I'm so isolated. So my normal support's like going to see friends, getting out. I don't do that anymore. So that's really impacted me.
同時，佢重返校園嘅計劃亦都受到影響。
In 2019, at the fall of 2019, I took a course to get ready to go into practical nursing. And then I was going to go into practical nursing in the fall because I completed my prereqs. And then COVID hit. And then I got sick 3 weeks after shutdown started with COVID-like symptoms. So not only have I been sick off and on since then with what may or may not have been COVID and continuous relapses from that.
Catherine 話喺美國嘅治療獲得好大成效嘅原因，就係個人化制定嘅治療方案更有針對性。
Is I really chose a program which I thought fit my needs. So they build it to you. They will adjust things so that you can move forward rather than, here's a program, you fit it. Either you fit it or you don't.
而佢就認為同4年前相比，本國嘅公立治療項目仍有待進一步發展。
I think that they need to look at how do they send someone out of the country and bring them back to a comprehensive care. That's not something they're looking at. Our treatment is still very much one size fits all. If you don't fit within the treatment regimen that exists, you're kind of caught. And that's still the case right now.
對此 ，Carol 亦都話佢了解到公立項目現正面臨住資金受限制以及新冠疫情嘅雙重挑戰。
Sadly, what's available for treatment for eating disorders in British Columbia is very, very underfunded and really inadequate. St. Paul's basically is the only in treatment, and they've got 8 beds, and the same with the Vista House. When you compare that to how many drug and alcohol beds there are in the province, it's,
長時間嘅等待輪候，亦都係公立治療項目嘅問題之一。Rose 醫生就話，佢哋需要將情況危急嘅病人放喺首位。
I think, one of the things that all our programs do is really try to triage patients. So, just like, if a patient were to present to emergency, we look at, who needs acute services now. And I think that's the important thing to remember, that if someone is very sick from an eating disorder, is medically compromised and needs care, they should be admitted to hospital, and that there's no wait list for that. If they need those services are there for them.
喺2017年，我哋都曾經採訪過一名因為多年受到飲食失調症困擾而結束自己生命嘅女孩 Jessie 嘅父母，並且了解咗喺北岸家庭服務會屬下一個以佢嘅名字所命名嘅項目，係專門負責飲食失調症相關嘅預防以及宣傳教育工作。擔任該項目嘅經理 Joanna 當時指出，喺多年嘅教育工作之中，佢發現飲食失調問題有年輕化嘅趨勢。
Children can start exhibiting signs of disordered eating, wishes for dieting, or being unhappy with their body at really early ages, as young as 5 or 6 years old.
而隨住新冠疫情嘅爆發 ，Joanna 喺今次嘅採訪之中表示，疫情令到大眾有更多獨處嘅時間，同時亦都係增加咗患飲食失調症或者復發該疾病嘅風險。因此，預防以及提高公眾意識非常重要。
So really working to dispel some of those myths too, that that it's only or that it mostly just impacts young women. We know that everybody from all walks of life, ages and races can be susceptible to struggling with eating disorders. So the more that we can kind of raise awareness and educate people on that, we're hoping that the more likely they'll be to reach out, feel less stigmatized, and kind of get the support that they need before it becomes a serious problem. And so we think it's really important to educate people and open up your eyes that, if you've struggled with chronic dieting or been, had body image concerns all of your life, that doesn't have to be normal, that we can kind of seek support and challenge that. So for that reason, we think it's really important to educate people on the broader impact of those behaviors and not just that really narrow sliver of the kind of diagnosed eating disorders, which I think affect so many more people.
疫情之前，該項目會去到社區或者學校舉行有關飲食失調症嘅預防以及知識講座。但係現時大部分都已經轉為網上服務。Joanna 話：佢哋將幾種唔同嘅網絡資源匯聚喺一齊，希望能夠為公眾提供更完善嘅幫助以及更詳盡嘅資訊。
We created some self-assessment screening tools around body image concerns, and then another one around eating attitudes. So it's a great tool for kind of self-reflection to see whether, whether changes during the pandemic or just overall have resulted in more of a preoccupation around food and body image for yourself. We also created a video resource where we had a mom and daughter with lived experience and one of our eating disorders therapists really have a conversation about what eating disorders are like for families, how they show up, what's important to know from a family that's gone through the whole experience of diagnosis and receiving treatment. We did a special podcast episode about how to love our bodies during this pandemic. And then we also were getting people's shared experiences too, and that might be through videos, blog posts that we're sharing on our social media accounts, on our blog, to help people listen to other people's stories and identify what feels familiar and really just kind of help to decrease that feeling of isolation that I think has really been a challenge for so many people during the pandemic.
佢表示，任何有需要嘅公眾都可以通過網絡或者電話嘅方式同佢哋聯絡去尋求幫助。
And then the other piece that we help families do is to navigate if there is a concern or there is a requirement to kind of have some more psychological or medical support to find out the process of where are the programs in your area, what are the steps to seek support and get involved.
而至於 Catherine 今年已經50歲，對於返回學校重新開始一段人生新旅程嘅決定，佢坦言不輕易放棄，正正就係自己嘅動力所在。
Just never give up. I think there's always a chance to grow, and I think, you can do treatment and relapse and people will say you failed or whatever, but you never fail. You always gain something. I am not the same person I was when I first got sick. I've grown, I've changed, I've achieved things. It may not be what you went in there for. It may not be the ideal treatment that you wanted, but if you can go in there with an open mind and a focus, you can always gain something and you can move forward.
好啦，今集嘅節目時間又夠啦。咁如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話咧，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。咁如果觀眾想上網重溫翻今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站，點擊節目重溫一覽。好啦，下星期同一時間再同大家見面，晚安。